Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
On Radio City Talk.
And welcome to another edition of Mental Health Monday. Really busy show today. Loads of conversations to be had on this programme, including me catching up with somebody who I've been dealing with on social media for quite some time, but I finally got to meet Sue Baker. Also, Liverpool as a city region has been signing up to the Time to Change pledge. We'll hear today on the programme what that Time to Change pledge is all about and about how employers can be more responsible towards their employees and their mental health. We're also going to be hearing from the Mind Blue Light Champion Coordinator for the North West, Paul Bannister, will join us on the programme too. We'll hear from the Metro Mayor, the Liverpool City Region, Steve Rotheram, and also Guy Keane from Merseyside Fire and Rescue. So we'll crack straight on and remind you first and foremost that this is a show about mental health, talking about mental health in an open and honest as way as we can. If you've got a story, you want to join the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us your email. Simply email mick@radiocity.co.uk. That's mick@radiocity.co.uk. Your emails come straight through to me. Nobody else sees them, but if you want to come on the programme, I'll forward them on to a producer, Lizzie, and she'll make sure that you get booked in a nice, timely manner. Now, we'll start off with a conversation with Sue Baker. Now, Sue is somebody who I've spoken to many times through social media, and she's been on the phone on the programme before, but actually, during the wintry weather from last week, she braved the snow from the south of England to come up to Liverpool for a Liverpool City Region Mental Health Summit. She was brilliant value. Here's the conversation with Sue Baker from Time to Change.
Mental Health Monday
On Radio City Talk.
with Mick Coyle.
Tackling the stigma.
Radio City Talk.
Now, something big is happening in Liverpool today, and it's happening from a mental health point of view. The first ever Liverpool City Region Mental Health Summit is taking place. It's taking place in Runcorn. I can't be there because I'm on air, but somebody who can be there and will be heading down as soon as she's done with this interview is Sue Baker from Time to Change. Sue, thank you for your time. Great to see you.
Great to finally meet you, Mick. It's been a while. Great to be here.
Disappointing in real life, aren't I?
Not at all. You're much younger than I thought you were going to be.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Crikey. We had an event in Liverpool last Thursday night. Steve Rotheram, the Metro Mayor, and Luciana Berger were there, alongside the Chief Constable of Merseyside Police and some fantastic organisations. We were talking about this from a regional point of view, about what can be done across the Liverpool City region. Today, this pledge will be signed, the Time to Change pledge, employer pledge. To tell us who's signing it and what the pledge really says.
Well, it's a combined authority signing up, so that's great. So we get a lot of coverage with one pledge. The Time to Change employer pledge is about any employer. It can be any size of employer. So if any of your listeners are their own business owners or work in a big organisation, it's for all employers. It's basically a commitment to address the stigma of mental health and discrimination that people often face in the workplace. So to take positive action, but also to promote mental health and well-being of the whole workforce. So it's not just the 1 in 4 of us with mental health problems. Everybody's mental health should be supported, protected, and people feel safe to speak out and get help when they need it in any workplace up and down the country and all across Liverpool. So we have 750 employers on board. Mick, you wouldn't believe the range of employers have got it. You deal with physical health, you've dealt with all other disability and diversity issues, but I've always said mental health has been in the too hard to do basket. But as a nation, we've changed, we've started talking, that mental health can be talked about, there can be positive responses, people know they can make a difference to the lives of people that are struggling. So society's shifting and employers are coming on board. But the kinds of organisations are football clubs, Everton are on board, lots of other football, rugby clubs, cricket, you name it. They're all doing stuff. Not all of them, but many of the big names. We've got Lindt Chocolate on board, all national government departments, Sony Music, Sony record label are on board. It's just a massive array. It's relevant in any workforce, however big or small or whichever sector. Hospitality, construction are on board, you name it. So the authorities coming on board as an employer, lots of councils are on board. It's about looking after the mental health and well-being of the whole workforce, which everybody has a duty to do, but it helps in terms of productivity of the workforce as well.
I mean, whether or not they like it or not, employers have, and we've got one in our sort of main reception, our HSE, Health and Safety Executive Rules, we've got our first aid trainers, we've got our fire safety regulations, our fire marshals information. That's part of the course for any business now to go, well, this is how we play by the rules. One of the things that Clark Carlisle raised on the programme when we were talking to him a few weeks ago was that he believes that within those health and safety rules that already exist, there's greater protections there for people from a mental health point of view. But they're so sort of far down, and that parity of esteem isn't there, that they're almost not considered to be a factor worth actually recognising. Whereas actually there's a duty, isn't there? There's a duty for employers to take those steps and to be positive about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure the regulations are that upfront about mental health, and maybe that's part of the problem in implementing them and interpreting them. I guess the perspective that we come from is always working alongside and with whoever we're working with, whether it's schools, employers, communities, high-profile people. We work alongside organisations. So you can take the carrot and stick approach. So we will take the carrot approach and say, look, well, one, this is going to help your productivity. It costs business something like £1,000 per employee due to mental health costs. So there's an absolute economic gain here for employers. So the business case has been well made. Report after report has said that, including the Thrive at Work report, which Paul Farmer and Lord Dennis Stevenson did recently for Number 10. But obviously employers have a duty of care. There's the disability discrimination legislation, the Equalities Act, so you are protected if you have severe and enduring mental health problems. However, the way that we talk about it and the way that most employers want to engage with it is how do we walk hand in hand to look after everyone's mental health and well-being, not just because it makes good business sense economically, but there's a moral and ethical case here to be made, which is if you really care about your employees, you need to care about their mental health and well-being.
What does it look like within a workplace?
Yeah, I mean, there's 7 key principles that we ask people. People have to make an action plan. So it's not a willy-nilly thing. It's not something which is lip service. Not everyone can pledge. It has to be a solid action plan that's supported from the board, chief exec, managing director level down. So it's got to encourage people to be more open about mental health problems, because that way we seek help earlier. Our colleagues can support us, but it's got to be safe to have those conversations, not to face the discrimination that we hear so often about. So you've got to make it safe. That means senior leadership sign the pledge and say, you won't face discrimination and we're going to do our best to support everybody's mental health and well-being. We've also got to make sure that line managers are competent to manage the mental health of their staff. Most of us become line managers through technical competency. I mean, I never learnt through my line management career how to look after the mental health and how to have open conversations with teams. So we've got to invest in line managers. That's another key thing, that your management strata are skilled up to do that. And the third thing is encourage people to talk openly to their colleagues, to their managers, senior leaders to talk, not just people on the shop floor or, behind the desk at the post office. The more disclosure we see from pledged employers, the more it makes it a safe, open conversation. And you realise that you're sat in the same team as somebody with bipolar or depression or, OCD, whatever it might be.
Let me ask you about that. What sort of feedback have you had from people who have signed up? I know Mersey Travel are signing up. If people from Mersey Travel go into work on Monday, are they going to notice this huge culture change within the business? Or will it be, a few pointers? Or have people come on board and gone, right, we want to do things completely differently, and they've made a massive shift versus those who go, well, we kind of already did this anyway, but we wanted the certificate, if you like, that says we do it because we're proud of the fact we do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no sort of one size fits all, and the action plan is very much has to be delivered by the organisation of where they are, where they're at, where their ambition is. It's not the same. The 750, they're all very different. So it's either people at the start of their journey saying, we haven't done much on mental health before, this is our first foray into the area, or it's people that have done quite significant work but want to take it to the next level, or it's people that have done so much that this is the icing on the cake. But obviously we want people not to see it as this year is our focus on mental health and then we're going to move on to something else. It should be an ongoing, continued effort. And for Mersey Travel, I would have thought, you're not going to see change overnight, but if there's lots of communication about the pledge and senior leadership on it, people should start to see culture shift. And one of the main things we see is the first people will pop up, the first brave souls, and say, hi, I'm Derek with depression, or I'm, Angela with OCD. And then you'll see a whole cluster of people start to feel safe to come forwards. And it's vital that people can talk safely about it. So don't expose yourself if you don't feel safe, but wait until you do and then talk about it to help educate others. Because, we're in every single workforce in the land. I promise you that. And here at Radio City, there's going to be lots of people with mental health. But, if we're confident and we feel safe, if the employer makes it safe and takes this position, then we should feel able to talk about it openly.
There must be a fear factor from some employers who aren't signing up, who would never consider signing up, because they're almost afraid of what might happen, that Derek with depression or Angela with OCD might come forward, and the employer will go, well, what on earth do you want me to do about it? I've set up an SME, or I've set up a radio station. I'm not prepared or equipped to do with that. So what do you do to go beyond the certificate to say, here's the awareness? What do you do so that people then know how to deal with those situations within a workplace?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's lots of organisations doing great work that aren't pledged, that could pledge or are doing small bits of work and just aren't ready yet to pledge. And I think for SMEs in particular, we've all known that there's obviously a gap in terms of resource. People don't have HR teams, they don't have occupational health people. It's a struggle for small employers, but they employ more people than anyone else in this country. So one of the things that Mind has been doing, Mind's one of the partners in Time to Change, is work with the Royal Foundation, the Royals charity that running the Heads Together campaign. So some of the money from the London Marathon and all that fundraising has helped Mind to deliver a new online resource for all employers, a bit of a one-stop shop, but the dedicated resource that will be there will be for small and medium-sized enterprise, with online training, online resources, and a guiding hand to help those small employers who don't have the expertise.
Is it nice when you go to employers and you go, well, those reasons you've got lost work days, those reasons you've got issues in regards to staff in productivity, this might be a solution? Because employers are always looking for solutions to problems. Is it a solution which they are surprised at, that might offer them something which they would never have considered otherwise, looking after better the mental health of their employees?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of employers, two things we know. A lot of employers still don't have mental health policies and haven't taken action. Yes, we work with those that have, but the vast majority still haven't. A lot still don't know where to go. So signposting is key, which is what this new online resource will do, is signpost people to help and advice. There's lots of people doing great work, but small and medium-sized employers won't know about it. I think, yes, it shows us how much work we have to do when employers will say, I haven't thought about the mental health of my workforce, which the majority of the cost to British business of lost productivity due to mental health is something called presenteeism, Mick. So it's not about, often people think, oh gosh, it's going to be somebody needing time off sick for depression or anxiety or something. Actually, the bigger cost is the people sat there every day coming into the office and not performing at their best because they're struggling and not telling anyone. That's the bigger cost. So suddenly that's when you see lots of employers, the light bulb goes on and they think, oh God, it's way beyond perhaps someone that might need, not all of us do, might need some time off for some treatment. It's actually the people struggling that aren't telling a soul. That's the bigger cost.
One of the things I found interesting when we were doing the marathon, we were speaking with a construction firm. I think it was Wilmot Dixon off the top of my head, but they had a policy where when they were saying, we've got jobs available, they would go, we are a mental health friendly employer, and they have like things built within it. So for instance, I think within that construction company, forgive me if it's the wrong one because you might have to start doing it now or sign up yourself, you have your birthday off.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to your birthday, and you think, well, it's not necessarily the biggest thing in the world, but actually it's one of those things where you go, that sounds like a company that I might like to work for. And those things where you go, well, there's a consideration to the way people's lives lead. And of course, if it's your birthday, kids, you might want to swap your day and things like that as well. But I just thought that's a really simple thing. You go, oh, that seems like a good company to work for. Companies which have, these away days where as a group you go away and you do something within the voluntary sector for the day, and it's part of the job, and it doesn't take you any extra hours, doesn't take you out of your weekends, but actually it's like a little bit of something extra, which is not just you're in the office every day or you're doing the same thing every day. And those changes aren't necessarily massive, don't take a great deal of planning for, but can make a real difference to an employee to get the right sort of employees in. Yeah,
and you find that people are loyal. If you treat people well, and you respect people's well-being and you recognise the struggle between home life, family struggles, we all struggle with that whether we've got children or not, then of course you treat people well and people will treat you well as well. One of my very best friends, and part of the reason I'm so passionate about mental health stigma, is one of my closest friends who I went to college and university with has really severe bipolar. She's very, very bright, she's very talented, she's a great writer. And she works on the docks down in Dover, not far from where I live. And the reason she stays there is because every time she's needed time off, which isn't all the time, she's a very loyal worker, and she's had to need treatment for bipolar, they're very supportive when she comes back. So she's very loyal to them. She stayed there for years. and they've got a very loyal, talented member of the team because they treat her right.
We've got Sue Baker with us in the studio from Time to Change. Steve Rotheram and Luciana Berger are at an event in Runcorn today. They're going to sign the pledge on behalf of the combined authority for the Liverpool City region and also for Mersey Travel too. It strikes me, Sue, when we speak to people around here, that Merseyside, Liverpool, the Liverpool City region seems to get mental health. Are we doing okay? Are we doing things right up this part of the world?
From what I can see, yes. Yeah, and you've got some great ambassadors, which is, it's really good to see some leadership up here and thrilled to be here today. And I think you've got some great champions. So we know that as well as having high-profile supporters, having everyday people like us, Mick, talking openly about mental health and thank you for what you do is part of the drive. So if anybody wants to get more involved, who's willing to share their story and help educate others, look us up or, get in contact and see what we can do together. We'd love to do more. We'd love to see Liverpool as a Time to Change hub and bring all the partners together. So absolutely, I think, great initiative up here and great leadership, but even more for us to do. Sue
Baker there from Time to Change. Brilliant value on the programme. Great to finally get her on the programme too in the Liverpool City region for this Mental Health Summit, which was taking place for the Liverpool City region Mayor, Steve Rotheram, alongside Liverpool MP Luciana Berger, to sign up the combined authority for the Liverpool City region to the Time to Change pledge. We've just heard what that's all about. And also to sign up Mersey Travel. Merseyside Fire and Rescue are also there. We'll hear about that. But first up, Steve Rotheram himself, the Metro Mayor for the Liverpool City region, speaking to our reporter Paul Dowd on why it's so important for him to sign up to the pledge this week.
The main thrust of today is to get experts into a room so we can discuss all of the issues around mental health, and people will be well aware that there's an increase in the number of people who report on mental health conditions. And we think that there's a better way that we can work more collaboratively to start to address some of those concerns that people have.
And getting business leaders and employers in a room like this that we've got today, how important is this now for the future of the city region as we move forward, addressing issues like mental health?
Well, it can't just continue to be an issue for the National Health Service. It is something that needs to be ingrained really into all of our thought processes. So for instance, housing has a big impact, and so does transport, and so does employment, and so do skills and air quality and a whole host of different things. So we need a holistic view of what it is that we want to achieve on behalf of those people who currently suffer with mental ill health, but also those people in the future who may well be sufferers and people who end up with conditions that are avoidable.
You'll be signing the Employers Pledge today. What does that mean? You're really putting your weight behind this and behind Time for Change. What do you hope to come out of today moving forward?
You're right. It's a programme called Time for Change, and it's an opportunity really for employers, for the health service, for housing associations, for everybody who has anything to do with the daily lives of people to start thinking about what the impact of mental health conditions are on their particular sector. So obviously on Merseyside we have Mersey Travel, and Mersey Travel are here today because they need to be including this in their thinking about what the travel requirements are for the next 10 or 15 years.
How big an impact from your own research that your office has conducted is the issue of mental health in Merseyside, and what's the detriment that it's having on our workforces in the city and the wider region?
Well, unfortunately, since the coalition came to government in 2010, there's been an exponential growth in people who are suffering from mental ill health, and a lot of that is predicated on things from a national government perspective, like the bedroom tax, for instance. That had a huge impact on people's mental well-being, other things like universal credit, but lots and lots of initiatives that are passed down from diktats in Whitehall and Westminster do have a detrimental effect on people in our city region. So this is, despite all of that, what can we do to start to address some of the major problems that sufferers have, and to raise its profile so that employers are aware that mental health in the workplace is increasing.
Steve, what message will you be saying to these employees today? What will you be saying to them to send them away to maybe pass on to the employees under them?
I suppose the first one is that we as a city region have said that we will sign up to be the first dementia-friendly, mental health-friendly and autistic-friendly city region in the country. So this is a big commitment from ourselves to see what we can do to really use the soft powers of the Metro Mayor to get organisations to start working sort of across border, but also across organisationally, so that we can start to get some of those synergies and some of those benefits, which then we can pass on, obviously, to the people who are in the front line.
And Luciana, obviously, unfortunately, can't be with us here today. But what do you hope that she'll be able to, when you report to her and tell her how today went, that she'll be able to maybe take to Parliament? And what message can she deliver coming out of this?
I think Luciana's got a huge part to play in the future strategy of what we need to do as a city region to address these issues. And she was the first ever shadow minister who had responsibility for mental health. And that shows you that, that's only in the last few years. That shows you the emphasis that Jeremy Corbyn has put on the political pressure that he's brought to bear to start to think about mental ill health as an important issue. It's not a standalone issue because it links to everything else that happens, but to put that political emphasis and the focus to make it a priority for areas like ours, I think will hopefully result in better treatment, but also some of the preventions, ensuring that people who are on the periphery with mental health conditions get the help and support that they need to prevent them from really being the unfortunate people who end up suffering all too often from serious mental health conditions.
Steve, you were at our recent event last week and you've seen the work that Radio City Talk Mental Health Monday is doing. We had the Mental Health 24-hour marathon recently as well. How important is the work that Radio City is doing to maybe go hand in hand with this and bridge that gap and get people talking about mental health issues?
Well, I know City Talk and Radio City are pioneers in really pushing this agenda forward, and it was not just very welcome that they had that marathon, the 24-hour thing that Mick did, but more importantly, it's trying to destigmatise the issue of mental ill health. And in our own families, we'll have somebody who currently is, or in the future will probably suffer from something of this nature, and it's a lot more common than people think. And especially in the workforce, we need to recognise this and try and help people get through these difficult periods, because as a society we should look after those people who are least able to help themselves, and sufferers really do go through the trauma of these sort of conditions, if as a human being we can do something to alleviate those issues that they're having, surely that's a good thing.
And Steve, if any of our listeners are having any issues, any problems, and they might not want to speak out, I mean, this is something that could affect anybody in this room, yourself, myself, it could happen to any of us any day. What would you say to them?
I'd say don't suffer alone. There is support, there's help that you can get. Contact one of these support agencies, and don't be afraid to talk about it. I was in Parliament when Kevin Jones, who's an MP, he stood up and he said that he had suffered with a mental illness that at that time was unthinkable that MPs would have it. Well, of course, MPs are the same as anybody else, so any section of society can have it. This is not confined to a certain socio-economic group or demographic. Anyone can get it at any time. They shouldn't feel ashamed or stigmatised by it. Go and speak to somebody and get help.
The Metro Mayor, Steve Rotheram, speaking to our reporter Paul Doward. Somebody else who was signing the pledge at the Mental Health Summit is Guy Keane from Merseyside Fire and Rescue. He told our reporter that actually mental health is an issue that they're already dealing with.
Mental health in the fire service is already on our agenda. It's a very high priority for us. And if you look back some years, it wasn't for us, and we really needed to take a good look at ourselves and put some procedures in place. So I like to think that now we are ahead of the game. We've put in a system where we take a good look at mental health and the challenges it poses, particularly for our workforce, and the sort of challenges they will come across on a day-to-day basis. and we put in a system where we offer that support directly and quickly in response to any incident they might go to, where they might start to get some of the early impact that will kick off into mental health issues. So anything else that I can take away from this conference that will help to enhance that package, I'd be very keen to do so. But also I think it's about sharing our experience and talking about the journey that we've been on and seeing the benefit of actually stepping up to mental health, taking it on, promoting it in the workplace, challenging the stigmas around it, and creating an atmosphere where it is comfortable for people to come and ask for help when they need it, and for people who receive that question to understand what they need to do to play their part.
What sort of challenges have you faced in the fire service with regards to getting people talking about their experiences and what they might see on a day-to-day basis?
Well, culturally, like a lot of other services, you know, we dealt with some of the more challenging issues with black humour, you know, but that's no longer appropriate in this day and age, and we really needed to find something that we could use to deal with some of the stresses and strains that people see, because obviously the firefighters are turning up to some quite horrendous incidents. You know, we've all seen the footage of the Grenfell Tower. Unfortunately, our firefighters in Merseyside haven't been to anything quite that bad, but it does start to give you some understanding of the scale of things they see, not on a day-to-day business, but certainly fairly frequently throughout their career. And it's very important that when our firefighters respond to those types of incidents, that we are there very quickly to deal with any stresses and strains that causes.
Guy Keane, Merseyside Fire and Rescue there. Another example of people from within the Liverpool City region signing up to try and tackle the stigma around mental health, be more open about mental health, and great value from both of them. Speaking of mental health, though, within the emergency services, let's have a conversation now with Mind Blue Light champion and coordinator Paul Bannister, who operates within the northwest of England. An in-depth chat with Paul now about how he got involved in the Mind Blue Light champion organisation and how he ended up being a Mind Blue Light champion and why it's such important work. Here's the conversation on Radio City Talk.
Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
Radio City Talk.
Okay, so it's Radio City Talk. My name's Mick Coyle. I do hope you're well. It's Mental Health Monday, and we've got a really interesting conversation to have today. We're going to be taking a look at mental health, but we're going to talk about mental health within the emergency services. There's been a scheme which has been up and running now for a number of years, about to hit year 3, in fact, and it's all in regard to those services which operate under the blue light. And the blue light campaign is something we're going to talk about with emergency medical technician Paul Bannister, who joins us on the programme now. Paul, thank you for your time. It's great to see you.
Okay.
You're the blue light coordinator, and one of the blue light coordinators for this region. Just tell us about blue light as an idea, because it comes through Mind originally.
Yeah, it all started off with Mind, and it was all to do with a survey that they ran about 4 years ago now, where they found that 1 in 4 emergency personnel suffered some sort of mental health crisis within their working career and beyond. So from the LIBOR funding that the government set up, they got some money to set up this campaign, do kind of studies and kind of investigate how we can make kind of the working life of the emergency services personnel safer and support them kind of mentally, as well as, you know, with all the in-house organisations like Hockey Health and stuff like that. So it's kind of separate to the company, but it's not. It's endorsed by them. Most of the emergency services have signed a pledge, kind of get rid of the stigma surrounding mental health in the services.
About 2 years ago, I went to meet the as was then new Chief Constable of Merseyside Police, Andy Cook, and I was saying to him, what sort of stuff are you dealing with at the moment which is outside the norm, you know, thinking that there would be, you know, a rise in, and I think there had been, trolling, social media and things like that. I was saying, what are the other things that you're dealing with? And he said, oh, well, obviously the mental health thing is becoming a really big deal. I instantly presumed that he was talking about the sort of 999 calls that they were receiving as a result of mental health. And he said, well, there is that. He said, but there's also the mental health of our own staff. And suddenly you think, oh, right, actually, that's not something that you consider. The fact that there are lost days, productivity days, manpower, womanpower days, which are lost because people, under the weight of expectation placed upon them, the difficult job that they do, can suffer themselves when it comes to their own mental health. And it takes the Chief Constable of Merseyside Police to sort of explain that.
Yeah.
And as soon as you were aware of it, you suddenly go, oh, right, no, I do get that. And I can understand some of the issues that might be there.
We did a video last year, which was kind of to promote the champions within the workplace. Wirral Mind ran it, and there was separate videos. There was the police, fire, and there was one for the ambulance service. And I remember saying, I don't even know where it came from, but I said, just because we wear a green uniform doesn't make us invincible. And, we deal so much with patients day in, day out, and you kind of get lost in that. And it is easy to lose people. We're so busy nowadays, whereas, 5-10 years ago, we'd have a bad job, we'd go back to station, have some downtime, chat about the job, what affected us, what didn't. Whereas nowadays we don't really have that time to do that because we're so busy. So this scheme is kind of set up to kind of recognise the fact that at the end of the day, we're going to patients, but we've got to be careful that we don't become patients ourselves, because at the end of the day, we're only human.
Absolutely. Is the work that you do based around the sights that you see, the things that you witness, or is it about the overall pressures that seeing those sights, as well as the high workload and the long hours and the difficult sort of hours that you might be working? Is it a cumulative thing?
It's definitely is a cumulative thing. We do go to bad jobs, but it could be that a person goes to a job where there's social issues that might affect them because they've got their own social issues at home. And as much as, when you come into work, there's the old saga of leave your home life at home and blah, blah, blah. It's easier said than done in some circumstances.
Well, is that one of the sort of unhelpful conversations which still takes place? Oh, it's only work, forget about it, go home and enjoy. You think, well, actually, no, I can't leave this stuff.
Yeah.
I can't leave this stuff at work. This is stuff which is now playing on my mind.
I think in the olden days, you go to a bad job and it kind of was, what you signed up for, get on with it sort of thing. Not quite as bluntly as that, but, in a long kind of roundabout way, that's what it was. And in some cases, some people put that pressure on themselves even now. I've been to this job and I've just got to man up. I knew what I was getting into doing this, and they kind of carry on, and then, they go to the next bad job and they do the same, and it all builds up over a period of time. You might get one person that a bad job affects them and straight away they're traumatised, but then you get someone that's perhaps had a cumulative kind of number of jobs over the years that suddenly gets to breaking point and just, I can't do this anymore.
So at what point then would the blue light sort of project kick in, if you like? If people had sort of got to the point where over a period of time they suddenly thought, right, I'm really starting to struggle now. What would happen then?
Again, it's kind of, we work in teams, obviously, and it is teamwork, really. So as blue light champions, we're looking at, is there any change of behaviour in the person? A few of us have got regular mates now. Is your regular mate suddenly out of character, coming in late? Are they kind of withdrawn, not very talkative? And as a champion role, it doesn't take any special qualifications. It's just kind of being there and saying, are you okay? And sometimes that's enough to kind of say, well, actually, I've got X, Y, Z going on. In other cases, the people that are putting pressure on themselves might say, oh, yeah, I'm fine, and really they're not. And it's kind of trying to encourage people to talk, and talk about not necessarily how they're feeling, not heart to heart, but just like, I heard you went to a bad job the other day, are you okay? And they might say yes, and that's fine. We take referrals from management as well if they think they might need kind of signposting. And so the main role of the blue light champion is to try and break the stigma surrounding mental health. You haven't got to just put up with it. There are people out there to talk. The other advantage of it is we're in the same job, so we understand. So we can see and understand what they're going through. We might not necessarily have been through it ourselves, but we know. And then, once we've kind of had that referral, are you okay? Well, actually, no, I'm not. I've got X, Y, Z going on at home, and it's signposting them to the right organisations, counselling, signposting them back to our occupational health. they might be under financial worries, kind of signposting them to the local mind groups like Wirral Mind. They've got a whole booklet of services, National Debt Helpline, etc., etc. For the more serious events, we've now got rolling across the whole of North West Ambulance is the TRIM service, which is the trauma risk management. So, for example, after the Manchester bombings, I went in to the EOC, the call centre, spoke to the people that took the calls for that job, and it's kind of identifying those that aren't kind of coping as well.
Without betraying the trust of any individual, what sort of legacies are there from a mental health point of view to the emergency services when you have an event like the Manchester bomb?
I think as far as like the Manchester bombing goes, for example, a lot of it, the general theme amongst the call takers was that they couldn't do anything. They were at the end of the phone, they could hear everything going on in the background, but they were stuck in a call centre and they couldn't do anything apart from dispatch us to go and deal with it. And I think people kind of struggled with that because at the end of the day, whether we're in a call centre, whether we're in 111, whether we're on the road, senior management, at the end of the day, we're all human. And when things come in like that, we want to help. We won't be in the job otherwise. And I think that was the biggest struggle, was hearing what was going on and knowing that all they could do was dispatch someone to help, when actually what they really wanted to do was get down there and, help people out themselves. And that was the kind of the general theme after that one.
It's a different side that we wouldn't consider, I think. As members of the public, you would be, if in a time of difficulty, hoping to see the blue lights coming down your street because they're the ones who are going to help you out. You would never think, how does this person feel about having to do this job? How is this person, how long is this person's shift? How long has it been since they got any quality time with their family or their loved ones? What terrible things have they already seen? And now they're looking after me. You don't consider it really as a member of the public.
I think deep down people are aware, but I think that's in part down to we've got a more wider press now. Obviously you've got Twitter, Facebook, social media, other social media platforms, which kind of brings our job into the person's lives. And we still go to people now, generally of the older generation, like, oh, I didn't want to call you because I know you're busy, and you just sat there kind of with high temperature and all this, that and everything. You're thinking, you should have called us hours ago. So I think people generally do, but obviously when they're poorly, they just want help.
But how telling that actually, that attitude which might exist within somebody who you go to see for a physical ailment actually plays out in the mental health of people and has done for many years, where you go, well, I didn't want to make a fuss, or I didn't think it was worth flagging up, issues which otherwise you would instantly go, well, if you feel like that, why haven't you said something sooner? I imagine that you find that as a blue light champion, that when people will come to you and say, well, I felt like this for a sustained period of time, rather than I feel like it today, so I'm going to flag it up today. Yeah,
and that's what we need to kind of, that's what we're promoting through the Mind Blue Light, is to try and get people to talk sooner. It kind of makes people feel better. At the end of the day, we all do this job. Any job has its bad days and its good days, and we all do this job, generally speaking, or I do, because I love my job. I couldn't do my job if I didn't get on with people. I didn't want to help people. I'm in the wrong job if I can't do that. I love it, and it does have its bad days, and sometimes I have to kind of kick myself and say, why are you doing this job? Because of that last patient you've blue lighted in, and you've got the best care at that hospital, wherever it be, and you've made a difference. And sometimes it's just reminding people, not necessarily talking about the job that's upset them, but talk about kind of what a positive impact they've made on that patient or patients in the long term. It is quite easy to get really run down with jobs, and it's just sometimes it's having that one person to say, are you okay? Yeah, you had that bad job, but this has happened to that patient. They're better now and they're home. I had someone out a couple of weeks ago to my house, and he recognised me from his mum that had a cardiac arrest, and it was like, how do you remember me? That was like 18 months ago, and it was just, you do make an impression, and that gives you that boost to think, this is why I'm in this job. As champions, we're there to kind of give people that boost as well.
We've got Paul Bannister with us. He's a Blue Light champion at mind.org.uk. I've got loads of information about the Blue Light campaign, the Blue Light project. It's up and running from March 2015, and it's ongoing as well with funding, I think, in place certainly for another year, and hopefully some more funding will emerge after that as well. Paul is an emergency medical technician. He looks like a paramedic. Is that the old-fashioned phrase for what you do?
Yeah, we kind of get tired. You're in green, so you're a paramedic.
Exactly. But just because you wear green doesn't make you invincible, which is a great quote, and I'm sure we'll use it in the title of the podcast for this week, Paul. What's been your own experience of this one, if you don't mind me asking? Have you ever found yourself in a situation when you've thought, oh, hang on a minute, things have got on top of me there? Yeah.
Funny enough, when I became a Blue Light champion, I didn't have any experience as such of mental health issues. But then, since being part of it, I have myself been off with stress and anxiety, which I can't really go into at the moment because it's still quite raw. It was only kind of last year. But needless to say, while I was off, the other Blue Light coordinators, obviously because North West is quite a vast area, so there's 6 of us and all of them were in contact. Wirral Mind were in contact, National Mind were in contact with me. And it kind of just gave me that boost to think, you know what, this is doing good, because if I was somebody else and I knew that this was around, then I'd feel better as well. So kind of having my own experience of it kind of makes me, in some respects, I hope anyway, to be a better champion because I've experienced it myself. I know what's out there and know what it's like to feel things that people are feeling. And it's a lot, I think it's a lot, I won't say easier, but it's more, you can understand more where people are coming from. You can kind of spot the people a mile off that, are in despair, in trouble, and you need to help them. So me having my experience, if anything, has actually boosted my knowledge. It's boosted my commitment to helping my fellow colleagues, whatever service they're from. They don't have to be from the ambulance service. I've had a couple of people from the police phone me up and stuff. So we're all in it together.
No, absolutely, and thank you for being so honest about that, Paul. I guess one of the things that comes from that is that almost a sense that the system works. That the Blue Light scheme, the project, the campaign that you've got ongoing, you're flagged up as a champion, but actually when you needed help, the system still worked for you, rather than people going, oh no, Paul, he sorts all that mental health stuff out. Yeah. The system kicked in. Was that, I don't want to say it was a relief, but it's a sign that actually that is something which is alive and well and is working, and people are talking about it and people are using.
Yeah, because I was off, I think it was like 4 or 5 months, but I'm here again doing the job that I love, and it's down to the other coordinators, obviously my family, local management, that I'm still in this job, for their support and getting me back to doing what I love and reminding me why I'm doing this job. And I'll always be grateful to everyone that was involved for helping me realise that, and hopefully going forward with my experience I can do the same thing for someone else that might be in a similar situation.
Because I imagine if that had happened to yourself or another individual before Blue Light was up and running, there would have been time off. It would have been about doctor's notes, return to work meetings, maybe the unions getting involved and things like that. Whereas actually, because Blue Light was there was another level, if you like, of intervention. Yeah. If you like, there was another level of support to get you back into the workplace as well. And I wonder whether or not there would have been people who'd gone through experiences before Blue Light was underway who had a negative sort of response to those circumstances, whereas it appeared that despite the problems, you've had a largely positive response to where you've been and where you're hoping to go.
Obviously, as a service, we've got a great occupational health. They've always supported us really well. Generally, I don't think the support wasn't there. I think with the Mind Blue Light project, it's become more aware. Obviously, it's a national campaign. It's all over social media. A lot of the services have signed a pledge to help their employees. So I think mental ill health has always been around, and I think this is just enforcing the fact that, a lot of people, stress is a factor as to why they go off. And now we've got the tools through Mind to support our employees better than ever before. We're currently in the process of actually internalising the Blue Light programme, because as you say, the funding will run out. So Mind are doing great things, helping us put it into our service and let us run on our own 2 feet, so to speak, running workshops, trainer workshops, which myself, Jamie and Amanda have attended down in London to train our blue light champions to kind of deliver the best support for their colleagues.
Because I would imagine within those emergency services that your physical condition is something which is regularly looked at because of the nature of blue light work in terms of the physicality that comes with it as well. But it's quite interesting, the idea that you bring mental health into it as well, which just also makes sure that those checks and balances that are there with physical health fit in maybe with mental health.
The two go hand in hand, because obviously if you're unfit, you feel like you can't do the job, so then that runs you down mentally. Or flip the coin, you've gone to a bad job, it's caused you stress, trauma, and then obviously the side effects of mental ill health is that, you know, you start eating, you start smoking, drinking, whatever, which then affects your physical health. So they are all interlinked. You know, some of the processes, we've got like physiotherapy, people that are injured on the job or have an injury, whereas now we're looking at mental rehabilitation as well. There's the Police National Treatment Centre in Harrogate in Scotland, where they do a psychological rehabilitation course. So it's looking at ways of dealing with stress in the job, at home. There's also the workplace action plan, wellbeing action plan, which is, it's like when you get signed off from Hockey Health, you know, you get given a phased return into work. And the wellness action plan is a similar thing, but for mental health, where you write down what can set you off, what can trigger you, what signs and symptoms that you might be experiencing ill health mentally. And that's signed by your manager and by yourself. And the manager agrees to kind of watch out for these things and have a review period like you would any other physical injury. At the end of the day, ill health mentally is same as a broken leg, only you can't see it, and that's the issue that we've got, is trying to get it out so people can see it and feel that they can get help regarding it.
Paul, in terms of the emergency services around the northwest area, are there any sort of black holes in terms of people who haven't signed up, people who aren't on board? Because I guess if everybody's on board across the northwest, be it on the ambulance service and beyond, you're looking at thousands of members of staff there who've got this support umbrella in place, which is fantastic news.
I know, obviously, we've signed up. There's myself and Kate Walsh that are the Cheshire and Mersey champions, so that covers us. Merseyside Fire are on board, Merseyside Police are on board, Cheshire Police are just coming on board. So we are all there. I quite frequently email Cheshire Police to try and link in with them and offer them some support as they bring it into their service. Myself and Amanda last year went over to Yorkshire Ambulance because they just signed the pledge last year. So we went over and spoke to some of their champions and kind of just gave them a model of how we work it, because it seemed that they had all these champions but no one running it. So we were like, split it into coordinators per area, because obviously Yorkshire is a big square mileage, just as North West is. You know, and it's just kind of helping other services to
and get people on board,
to get it up and running.
Mind.org.uk has got loads of information about Blue Light and Mind Blue Light, and you can go on there as well. You can sign up your organisation to it if you also want to maybe point that in the direction of your employers and nudge them and tell them to sign up as well. There's loads of resources as well that your employers can read through as well on there as well. Paul, thank you for sharing your story today. We really appreciate you joining us on the programme, and here's to more and more people signing up, and as many people as possible getting help when it comes to that. Thanks for being so honest about your own situation, and we wish you all the best for the future. Blue Light, mind.org.uk is a good website to go to find out more information. And Paul Bannister, our guest today on Mental Health Monday.
Mental Health Monday on Radio City Talk with Mick Coyle.
Radio City Talk.